Hello, welcome back to Chapter Day. Happy Friday. Yay! We've made it safely through another week by God's mercy and blessings. And we are going to be reading Esther chapter 4. Now, yesterday we saw how one man's hatred and quest for revenge took him to pass a decree or have a decree passed to eradicate an entire group of people. That is Haman, because Mordecai, who was a Jew, failed to bow to him because he was just a man, even though it was the king's decree. And we're going to be reading something similar to that in some chapters coming up. Not chapters, but books. In the book of Daniel, maybe. And he is just upset because this Jew is refusing to bow to him, because he's supposed to be this great person. I don't know what he did for the king, but the king sees it fit to honor him with so much, how should I say, obeisance, that people are supposed to bow when they see him coming. And Mordecai is a Jew, and that is not something that the Jews allow. God does not allow obeisance to any man. You honor the king, but you are not supposed to pay obeisance. This man has no kind of title except that he works for the king. That's Haman. So Haman has the king, told the king something, that the Jews were not honorable people and that they should be totally eradicated. And that's what they're going to seek to do. So a writ has gone off with the king's seal, and it's gone to all the kingdoms that the king sees over, and let's see what happens next. Okay, of course there is unrest in the place, and Haman is calmly sitting down to have drinks with the king after he's created such a chaotic situation. Chapter 4. When Mordecai perceived all that was done, Mordecai rent his clothes and put on sackcloth with ashes, and went out into the midst of the city and cried with a loud and bitter cry, and came even before the king's gate, for none might enter into the king's gate clothed with sackcloth. So Mordecai has heard what has happened, because remember, the decrees are going out from one province to the next. And he has heard that Haman has, well, I'm not sure if he heard it was Haman's doing, but he heard the decree against the Jews. Okay, verse 3. And in every province, whithersoever the king's commandment and his decree came, there was great mourning among the Jews, and fasting and weeping and wailing, and many lay in sackcloth and ashes. So Esther's maids and her chamberlains came and told it her. Then was the queen exceedingly grieved, and she sent Raymond to clothe Mordecai, and to take away his sackcloth from him, but he received it not. So I guess maybe still Esther has not conveyed the reality that she herself is a Jew. I'm not sure if she's done that yet, but she has heard from her maids as to what's going on with the Jews out in the city, how they're crying and lamenting and renting their clothes and putting on sackcloth. And that's a sign of repentance. Okay, I remember when I was Catholic during the Lenten season, we would go to get ashes on our foreheads and try to wear very dark, morose looking clothes. But anyway, similar to this. Okay, verse 5. Then called Esther for Hattach, one of the king's chamberlains, whom he had appointed to attend upon her, and gave him a commandment to Mordecai to know what it was and why it was. So Hattach went forth to Mordecai unto the street of the city, which was before the king's gate. And Mordecai told him of all that had happened unto him, and of the sum of the money that Haman had promised to pay to the king's treasuries for the Jews to destroy them. Also he gave him the copy of the writing of the decree that was given at Shushan to destroy them, to show it unto Esther, and to declare it unto her, and to charge her that she should go in unto the king, to make supplication unto him, and to make requests before him for her people. Now, I'm going to say this. It's pressure. He is looking to put a lot of pressure on Esther. And I would tell you sometimes, I don't think I like Mordecai too much. I'm sorry, I'm going to say it. I know about Haman and all that stuff. And I think Mordecai was a very proud man. I know, being of the Jewish faith, maybe he had faith pride or heritage pride or religious affiliation pride, but he sounded like a proud man, to the point where he would be very, I don't know. And I am not siding with Haman, but I tell you, I think I see Mordecai in a way that he is a very proud and pushy man too. So now he's pushing Esther to go before the king to petition for her people. Now, I'm not saying that's not the right thing to do, but it is so much pressure to put on a young girl. Personally, why couldn't he ask to go see the king? Put some proper clothes on and go before the king yourself. But I guess, he maybe thought Esther would have more influence. Okay, that's just my thought. Verse 9. And Hathach came and told Esther the words of Mordecai. Again, Esther spake unto Hathach and gave him commandment unto Mordecai. All the king's servants and the people of the king's provinces do know that whosoever, whether man or woman, shall come unto the king into the inner court, who is not called, there is one law of his to put him to death, except such to whom the king shall hold out the golden scepter, that he may live. But I have not been called to come in unto the king these 30 days. Okay. So Mordecai, is requesting Esther, the queen, to go before the king Ahasuerus. King Ahasuerus has a rule that unless you are summoned to his palace or his presence, you are not to come. So Esther knows the rule. And for 30 days now, he has not summoned her. And now Mordecai is telling her to go on into the king, whether or not she's been summoned. Remember, she's a young girl. He's an older guy. I'm thinking maybe at least 10 or more, not even 10, maybe 15 or 20 plus years. You have older cousins. I had older cousins, and they were old enough to be my parent, if so be. But I don't know how young Esther was, or maybe even how old Mordecai was. But I know there was a good age, must have been a decent age difference. He's sending her to do something that would cost her her life. But I would say this. If Mordecai is going on the fact that God is with them, amen to that. If he's trusting in God, that is definitely the way to go. You have to just go boldly. But if he's just pushing her out on a whim to say, there's a 50-50 chance that the king, and I'm thinking that may be it, because I don't know how close these Jews actually were to serving God. They had tradition, they had formality. Yes, they practiced all of the chanting and whatever else they did in their ceremonies. But really a relationship with God, I don't know how close these Jews were to God. But here he is telling Esther to go before the king on a whim. And, excuse me, I don't know. Maybe he already had spoken to, maybe he was praying about it already. Maybe he had talked to God about it. But let's see what happens. That's just me. Verse 12. And they told to Mordecai Esther's words. Then Mordecai commanded to answer Esther, think not with thyself that thou shalt escape in the king's house more than all the Jews. For if thou altogether holdest thy peace at this time, then shall their enlargement and deliverance arise to the Jews from another place. But thou and thy father's house shall be destroyed, and who knoweth whether thou art come to the kingdom for such a time as this? Some very famous words. More pressure on Esther, I would say. More pressure on Esther. So he's telling her, don't play as though, this would be in my home language, don't play as if you're this Miss Uppity Queen and think you're going to get away when they come to massacre the Jews. You and your father's house might be destroyed, but he didn't say God, but he said deliverance might come from someplace else other than you. So don't think to yourself you want to sit up there and hide away while your people outside here are going to be destroyed. That's what he's telling her. I think he's putting a lot of pressure on her. I honestly would say this. I didn't like Mordecai too much in this story. Honestly. Apart from everything, beside the fact that he was one of God's chosen people back then, I didn't like him. Okay, verse 15. Then Esther bade them return Mordecai this answer. Go, gather together all the Jews that are present in Shushan, and fast ye for me. And neither eat nor drink 3 days, night or day. I also and my maidens will fast likewise. And so will I go in unto the king, which is not according to the law. And if I perish, I perish. So Mordecai went his way and did according to all that Esther had commanded him. That's the end of chapter 4. I would say this. Again, I don't know how young or old Esther was. She wasn't old. The king only was looking for young virgins, so she was young. I'm thinking all the time. I'm thinking between 19 and 21. She could have been even younger. But Mordecai is putting a lot on her. I'm thinking, how come he didn't think to ask her to set up a meeting with him and the queen and the king? Why couldn't he have done that instead? Maybe that was not allowed. Maybe that too was forbidden. I don't know. But I just thought that was a lot of pressure to put on a young girl. That's her life. But, like I said, if Mordecai was already working along with God and knowing God had this, then I can see he instructing. So far, you know what? There's no God mentioned. God's name is not even mentioned once yet. From the time we hear Jews, it is inferred that these are God's people. But like I said, seeing the behavior of the Jews, and even him, he came from the tribe of Benjamin. The Benjamites were doing some really awful things among all the other tribes of Judah and Jerusalem. So I don't know how much connection they had with God apart from the fact that they were descendants of Jacob and Isaac. But you know what? God's favor extends generations and extends boundaries. And as much as I question sometimes, but she said she was going to go pray. Okay, she will fast. As a matter of fact, did she mention praying? She said she and her maidens will fast. So I think it's assumed that while you fast, you pray. You see, there's a lot of implicit information in this book, Esther. We are implying that this was a close relationship with God, because if you're fasting as a Jew, we are believing you're praying, and if you're a Jew, you are connecting with the God. So it's a lot of implications, okay? But that's how we go through life sometimes, because if we say we are God's people, it means it's God we're talking to. Who else are we going to be praying and fasting on behalf of ourselves, but to God? So that's it for chapter 4 of Esther. Really, really cool story. Really cool story. And it's not, I hate to say the word story, a very amazing recount of what took place. So that's our reading for today. Until our next reading, keep on listening. That's how our faith grows. So take care. Bye.